Hey, this is Sandy,
And Randy.
and we're here on AT Corner.
Being an athletic trainer comes with ups and downs, and we're here to showcase them all.
Join us as we share our world in sports medicine.
All right, how are we doing this? What do we got today? We got some hero stories.
Yeah, we got some CPR heroes
Oh, okay.
and heart-related heroes. Just
Whoa.
in general, we have
AT
heroes.
All right, I think. Do we have anything before?
Nope.
All right, I think
We've got some two heavy stories to start off in the beginning.
Well, I guess when you're talking about CPR and heart-related stuff, it can get heavy quick.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think we should dive in.
I've already heard this story, so you want to read it?
Yes, I will. This one's by Kevin J. My oldest daughter always had an issue with acid reflux when she was young. I was on my way to pick up my wife's father from the train, and I was no more than a mile from my house when my phone started to go nuts. I pick up, and my wife is in tears and panicked. She said the ambulance is on the way, but our baby isn't breathing and turning colors. I turn around right away and head home, breaking the speed limit rules.
As would I.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like if you were pulled over, I feel like the cop would get it.
I feel like you just have to say, like, come follow me.
Yeah,
like,
just...
my baby's in danger. Like, please help.
It
would probably be a police escort.
Oh, absolutely. I get to the house and head in, and my daughter isn't breathing and her lips are turning blue. That is scary.
Mm-hmm.
My breath doesn't go in, so I start with chest compressions and back blows. Once I spin her over, a glob of breast milk and mucus comes out, and she starts crying. Crying is a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you this because it was told to me what happened. In all honesty, I blacked out and went into response mode and had no idea what I was doing and just operated on autopilot. That is a crazy story.
What do you think about that as our kickoff story?
I think that really sets the tone for what we're going to be seeing in the rest of the show.
I mean, I know that it's like not one of his athletes, and it's like not something that we usually talk about, but this is such a, just like, I wanted to highlight how he said, I can tell you this because it was told to me what happened. I just went into response mode.
Yeah, you don't think about it when you're in an emergency situation. It's what we're trained to do, and do it.
Adrenaline is a powerful thing.
Yeah, and it goes, even though it wasn't his athlete, it just goes back to, as an athletic trainer, you're kind of always on the clock.
And all of you especially like young athletic trainers right now who are like not working, I think emergency medicine is something that you should really, really be studying and staying on top of, because that's the one thing that when you go back, you can't look in a book.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You just got to go.
He had no time.
Yeah, seriously.
This next one's actually from him too.
Oh, Kevin J with another one?
Mm-hmm.
I can't, again, is that bad luck or?
This one's a little bit heavier.
Oh, do you want to go with this one?
Sure. So he wrote, the other story was that we were out for this same daughter's 7th birthday party. So, of course, the same daughter is, like, centered around
Yeah,
us.
Seriously.
And since she loves ribs, we went to a great barbecue place by our house with family and friends. As we were leaving the restaurant, we heard a slam and break squealing. That's scary already.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's an uneasy feeling right there.
I picked my head up to see 2 people flying through the air. I ran out to help. The husband was laying on the sidewalk about 30 feet away, but was breathing and screaming. I ran to the wife, who was still lying in the road and was unresponsive. That's like a moment of triage.
Yeah, seriously.
I went into responder mode and started checking on her. She had a pulse, but it was a weak one. But she was not breathing, and she was not responsive.
Oh, man.
Myself and another responder, who identified herself as a nurse, began compressions on her. We kept going till EMS arrived. They took over, and I went back to check on the husband. He had lost consciousness and had rasping breath. They spine boarded him and took him as well. Come to find out later, it was a drunk driver that had ran a red light and hit this couple. They were both pronounced dead when they got to the hospital.
Oh, man.
This is when I learned about ATs Care and what a great service they provide.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, that's definitely what ATs Care was made for.
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk more about ATs Care. I did include a little bit about it at the end, so we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end if you guys don't know what that is. And then also I was thinking we should do an episode on ATs Care.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I think we could find someone to talk to.
Oh, definitely. But anyway, Kevin said, I want these stories out there as an example and as a way to show what we are capable of, and at times, what toll that can have on us emotionally. I'm not scared to let people know that I have felt overwhelmed and have had to reach out. It's what makes us better as a profession and better as humans.
I mean, that's true. I mean, even though we're trained to do this, we're still people.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it didn't happen to us personally, we still carry that load.
I know. So I'm really, really glad that he was able to reach out to ATs Care, also provide us with these stories to share with other athletic trainers.
Absolutely. And, he's definitely not the only one who's had to deal with that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even Andy Paulin, I think he did a whole presentation on, I think he's had like 7 or 8 athletes who have died.
Yeah, seriously.
We should talk to him probably.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So guys, stay tuned for that. We'll see if we can reach out on that one.
All right, this next one's by Katy M. We got called to the office saying a staff member was having trouble breathing. When we got there, his BP was low, he was lightheaded, sweating, and having chest pains. The camp we were working at was more than 30 minutes away from the closest hospital, so it was going to take an ambulance almost an hour to just get him there. That is always the worst feeling, is when EMS has to, takes a while to get there, whether it's because of location or, what's going on.
Especially when you think about, heart-related injuries or heart-related conditions.
Seriously. And you know what? It actually goes back to one of my competencies. The scenario that I had, the patient started declining and, breathing was getting worse. So we decided to call EMS in this scenario, right? So normally when you do a competency or a scenario, once you call EMS, it's kind of done. After we said we call EMS, nothing happened because it was on a simulator.
Mm-hmm.
We just had to keep going. So you forget, I guess in real life, I'm still going to be monitoring this person.
Mm-hmm. I think that's where, you get a huge, that's where your emotional intelligence comes in. And that's where, okay, yeah, you checked vitals, but you still got to keep the patient calm. You still got to treat for shock if that happens.
Exactly. Instead, another AT and I transported him to the hospital. On the way, we had to pull over and almost give him CPR a couple of times, but he regained consciousness every time we did a sternum rub, thankfully. Later that evening, the hospital staff informed us that he was experiencing congestive heart failure. When he returned back to work, he wrote us a note saying, "Katy, God's angel, I'm so happy that the Lord had you and everyone else there for me. With your help, I have another day of life." Wow, that is intense.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you never know what you're going to deal with. And you always have spectators. I mean, maybe not now because of COVID, but there are always going to be people around who have who knows what kind of medical condition around you.
Yeah. See, that's why, the job description may be just your athletes, but it's definitely not reality. Mm-hmm. It's anyone you're around. We've all had it where coaches may have a pre-exposing condition that we have to be concerned about.
Yeah, I had to respond to a coach having a stroke.
Really?
Yeah, remember I was supposed to go to your award ceremony for something, and then...
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
And then, right as I was leaving, a coach started having a stroke, and then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be late to the award ceremony, but that's okay.
Man, I forgot about that.
That was I think I talked about it just a little bit last week in our last episode, because that was when he had, what is it called, dysphagia, where literally he was trying to talk and it was coming out just jumbled babble, no, you couldn't even make anything out of it. And I'm sure that was so frustrating for him too. Oh, absolutely. And actually it went away probably after the first few minutes, because he was able to verbalize and say hey, he actually did deny transport. Mm-hmm. He, I don't remember if someone else took him, but he didn't go in the ambulance, but he was able to verbalize and say that. Oh, interesting. Yeah. But in the beginning he couldn't, so I'm sure that was really scary for him. Yeah, I forgot about that story. So our next one's from Bill, and this one's also about CPR. Which actually I was surprised when I was asking for stories. I put in our Instagram stories asking, like, I think the first question was like, have you had to do CPR in real life? And we got over 100 votes, and 25% of people have.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, that it was a lot higher than I was expecting.
Yeah.
So anyway, Bill actually sent in his story, so if you want to read that.
Had another incident Memorial Day 2019. I was helping out providing recovery services to the members of a CrossFit gym that I had clients at. My friend, who was doing the Murph workout of the day, suffered a heart attack in the middle of the workout. Whoa. That's intense.
Mm-hmm.
Elva and I were both there. Elva is also a certified athletic trainer.
Mm-hmm.
I performed compressions and another bystander did breaths. Saved my friend. He is still doing well to this day. Well, I'm glad he's doing well.
Mm-hmm. See, again, you never know when you're going to have to respond, and you never know how bad it's going to be. And I'm glad that that was a survival story.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really what makes these stories great. Is it just shows how many lives ATs can save, even outside the job.
Mm-hmm. You've never had to do CPR or like any...
Luckily, no. Knock on wood. That is one thing like I'm prepared to do, but I don't ever want to have to give someone CPR.
Yeah. I mean, we know a lot of ATs who have, but I just am still surprised by how many people respond to our stories saying that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot. About a quarter of the votes we got.
Mm-hmm. So this next one's actually like really random and crazy. It's actually anonymous. An athletic trainer who was waitressing at a waterfront restaurant. So she said that some dingbat, her words, plugged their boat into the wrong power supply, and they dropped their ladder into the water, so it electrified the water.
Oh no.
Which means that it temporarily paralyzed 2 8 to 10-year-old kids swimming nearby.
Oh no. And they're still in the water, right?
Yeah. Which is really scary. Also,
yes.
Like, you know the whole, like, when you first arrive and you're like, oh, you gotta check if the scene is safe? If the water's electrocuted, like...
Scene's not safe.
Yeah. So anyway, their mom screamed because the kids were just floating, which is really scary.
Terrifying.
Yeah. So the dad jumped in and pulled them out. Which, I mean, I don't really know if... Well, it says he was big enough, but he had to fight the current. So I don't know if it was just a like single electrify. But I mean, that's the thing too, is like, you don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you don't know, and it's hard to just take that chance when you're the response.
Well, I'm sure, like, if it were my kid, like,
yeah, definitely.
That's a completely different response to me than if I were a bystander.
Yes, absolutely.
So, like, I'm sure this dad's like, I don't care if I get electrocuted, like, I'm getting my kids out of that.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, he was big enough, but he had to fight the current. I already said that. The kids were totally conscious, but couldn't move.
Interesting.
So that's also scary on their end, because they're trying to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, and they don't know what's going on.
Anonymous said, I responded quickly once they were out of the water. All I had on me was my hands and a watch, so I took pulse, respirations, did a primary survey, and monitored their condition. The mom needed the most care, just calming her down.
That's usually how it goes in some of these situations.
Yeah. She was understandably freaking out. And I was actually recognized by the city for my efforts, which are really just keeping vitals and keeping people calm.
Nice. I mean, that's still an important part of the job.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even then, sometimes it's just nice to have someone there who can take control of the situation.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so this next one's by Whitney C.
And this one's at a wrestling regional tournament.
Oh, everyone's favorite. Mm-hmm. Who doesn't love working wrestling? That's where a lot of stories come from. I do have to say.
Really?
I feel like if it's an interesting story, it probably happened at wrestling.
You know, last year I worked wrestling probably like every weekend.
And you had some interesting stories. At least kids crying.
Yeah, but I feel like I mean, I wouldn't have said I had any interesting stories.
So Whitney C.
I don't remember any.
So Whitney C. said, at the CIF Girls Wrestling Regional Tournament, we were in the final round of the heavyweights. This athlete went into overtime, and as she won, she collapsed and was saying, I can't breathe. When I went over there, she told me that she was diagnosed with Wolff-Parkinson White.
Which is super rare.
Yes.
I added this. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a syndrome in which an extra electrical pathway in the heart causes a rapid heartbeat. And when I said rare, it's actually really rare. Like, it's only present in 0.1 to 0.3% of the population.
Yeah, a lot of times that's the condition that you study for the BOC and then probably won't see it.
Yep, she talked about this too. And then I also included that it's managed sometimes with medication or a pacemaker. So if you guys ever come across this, which is probably rare, but
But it could happen.
Or if you're studying for the BOC, there's your little gem for today.
So this athlete had surgery about 3 weeks prior, and the doc gave her the okay to wrestle during the CIF tournament. My preceptor and I were able to control heart rate immediately by having her focus on her breath with a calm, comforting voice. We also called EMS, had the AED ready, and were just preparing to perform CPR if needed.
That's kind of a scary position to be in.
Yeah, seriously.
But I mean, at least you have some like time to mentally prepare, I guess.
Oh, yeah. And it's kind of like a controlled situation.
Like my seizure, my expected seizure.
Your planned seizure?
Yeah.
EMS ended up transporting her immediately, which was good because the mom wanted her to go to the hospital before they traveled back home. Also, her blood pressure was still pretty high. I'm thinking because this match took so long, it really took a lot out of her and stimulated her condition. She ended up coming in 3rd place at the state finals.
That's crazy.
I know.
Awesome.
Yeah, what an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
This incident happened when I was a student, which came in handy when I took my BOC.
See what I was talking about?
Yep. I was able to remember Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome because of this. I know to immediately activate the EAP.
Mm-hmm.
As with most heart conditions, that's your go-to.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, let's see. It was CIF, so high school. And you're probably going to look at their... that was probably on her physical, but maybe it wasn't her athlete.
It probably wasn't.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They were probably the host school, and
Yeah.
it was just some random school's athlete.
Yeah. That's what I always worried about.
That is the worst thing ever.
Yeah. Like when I'm working tournaments, I'm like, man, someone has a physical somewhere.
Yeah. Like, you just don't know what these kids have. I mean, obviously they were cleared by a doctor, probably, but...
Well, when you're working per diem, it's kind of a little bit more sketchy.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more sketchy.
Yeah. So this next one's actually anonymous, and it's about 2 strokes that this person has responded to.
Oh, all right.
Have you ever responded to a stroke?
I have not, knock on wood.
Really?
Yep.
I'm actually very surprised by that.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I don't know why. But you know what? When we get to mental health, like stuff,
Are you saying that because most officials in track and field tend to be older? Is that why you're surprised?
No, I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like you've told me a story about a stroke before. I don't know. I didn't. Okay, anyway.
No, you have me beat in that category.
Hey, that's not a good category to have you beat. Okay, so anyway, Anonymous said, I responded to 2 strokes several years apart. One after a football game and another while I was finishing teaching a CPR class right before one of our basketball games.
Okay.
Yeah. The one after the football game was just a severe headache and mild face drooping. I didn't hear what happened after transfer of care. Which, this is crazy because, they tell you, like, FAST, the whole acronym.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I mean, I don't know if she just only included this, but, like, she says it was just a severe headache and mild face drooping. I mean, that's, like, one of 4 things.
It's funny you bring that up because...
I mean, that's a significant one of the 4 things.
That's definitely a giant red flag.
Yeah.
But it also goes to show you that when we learn conditions, any condition, but especially emergency stuff, they don't present all the time like you're taught in the textbook.
Oh, no.
And that's why you really gotta think through and remember what you've taught and remember the connections that everything has, and that can really help you out.
So the second one, she said, I got a call right at the end of class, CPR class, remember, and literally said to my students, there's a medical emergency. So class is dismissed and you'll get your cards in 1 to 2 days, and then ran out the door of our gym. When I got there, I think of all classes, I think CPR classes would definitely understand.
Yes, for sure.
When I got there, I noted face drooping again, arm weakness, and she couldn't speak. She was really young. Oh, that's like mine.
Yeah.
I think those are actually the 3 things that we were noticing too. She was really young, maybe like 32, but she had lots of comorbidities and was overweight. Even though she had all the textbook symptoms, I still didn't think it could be a stroke because of how young she was. I was hoping that it was going to be a diabetic shock or something like that, but even paramedics were saying that she was hitting every check mark on their stroke protocol. Luckily, I did get some follow-up on this one, and I heard her prognosis looked fairly good.
Nice. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's very good.
See, like what we were just talking about, all the textbook symptoms.
Yeah, except for the age.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't expect someone so young to get that, but it can happen to anyone.
You know, I talk about this all the time, but like when we're reading articles or like when you're reviewing articles and we say,
I like how you said when we're reading articles. I like it.
More like when you're reading articles. Anyway, like when we're talking about how, I mean, there's never going to be something that's unanimously, it works for everyone or it doesn't work for everyone. Like there's always going to be like, it works for 78% or 98%, but there's still that 2% or that 12% or whatever, sorry, I did my math wrong, 22%, whatever, like you want the other side that we're not with the majority.
Yep.
And so I think that's so important to remember that, yes, likelihood should take precedence in your decisions, but you should also remember that this person could be just an oddball.
Yep.
They could be one of the minority.
We treat people, not means.
Not means? Oh, like, I didn't know.
Sorry, statistical means.
That went over my head.
I think we should make a shirt that says that.
How about we treat people, not numbers?
That's good too. I like both.
You want to read this last one?
Yes, this one's from Kristen L. Once I had to respond to an adult in the stands.
Okay, this one's crazy.
We thought this person was in cardiac arrest, but once we put the AED on him, it read a pulse.
This is why it's crazy.
Luckily, an ambulance was already at the game and got him to the hospital quick. Turns out that he was suffering from a drug overdose, which made the pulse hard to detect from artery constriction from drug use.
So I never learned about that personally.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And so I thought it was a great idea to include this one too, because it's not something that I've ever come across. But I mean, I feel like drug abuse is not that uncommon.
No, especially now in the United States. It's a big issue. It's such an issue that I believe NATA even had a session. I didn't go to the session. I should have, because it sounded pretty interesting. But even had a session about how ATs can help with the opioid crisis.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I think it's like from our point of view, it's a lot of patient education and probably some of like the rehab and stuff, getting people off opioids sooner. But yeah, it's definitely becoming a big issue in the medical community.
But then also, like whenever I think of like drug use, I always think of like what interventions and what referrals and like all that sorts of stuff that we're going to have to deal with on like the administrative side.
Yeah.
But I guess until this, I never really thought of, of course drugs are going to affect sport. Of course, I think this is a spectator.
Yes.
Yeah. But still, like if you have an athlete or if you have a patient participating in activity and they're dealing with drugs, then you have to remember that it does affect the body.
Yeah. And you know what? Your athletes may get prescribed an opioid. I mean, luckily in our population, a lot of times they're not in that much pain at that point, to where they're being prescribed opioids that often, but it can still happen.
Yeah, so Kristen also said that they never found out what the drug was, and then after transport, they didn't get any more final information. But he did...
I was just going to say, most importantly, he lived.
Yes, so I thought that was a nice one to end on.
Yeah, that was interesting.
I didn't want to end heavy. But we can talk about ATs Care. Yes,
I'm very excited about ATs Care.
Do you want to talk about it? I put a little blurb right here.
Yeah, so, if you haven't heard of ATs Care, essentially it's ATs helping ATs. There's teams of ATs who have been trained in psychological first aid to assist you processing these new emotions after responding to an emergency or suffering a traumatic event.
And it doesn't have to be, like, it could just be like, oh, I had to respond to this. Like, everything's fine, but I still had to do this, and I don't really know how to process what I'm feeling. That's what these ATs are here for. And a lot of them who are trained, like some of them have also been through traumatic events, and they can also help talk about how, I mean, I've never talked to them, so maybe I shouldn't be telling what they do, but like from what I was reading, they are there to connect with you and relate with you and help you process these new emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's very important because we're people too. We have to manage that stress of any situation, whether it went well or if it was out of our control and it was a negative outcome, even though we did everything we could.
And I'm sure that's a huge thing that they focus on is it's out of your control.
Yeah. I mean, this program is something that I've told you before, I really want to get involved in and, volunteer for. I just, I haven't done it yet, but it's definitely on my list and I'd love to get involved.
Yeah. So, in the forefront, maybe 2021, we're going to be looking to see if we can get someone from ATs Care on to talk about that. And then we'll also see if we can reach out to Andy Paul and see if he wants to share
absolutely.
his stories again.
I'm sure we'll be able to have enough stuff to do another AT Heroes at some point.
Oh yeah. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is only the people who follow us on Instagram and were willing to share their stories. You guys, there are so many more AT heroes out there.
ATs rock.
So anyway, to wrap up ATs Care, I did go ahead and put the email for ATs Care and the website link for the NATA blurb about ATs Care in the show notes. So you guys, if you need that, you can go ahead and head on down. Or if you want to look more into volunteering with them or getting more involved, that's also down below. So
excellent.
Cool. So you guys, if you're new, we have a Facebook group. It's called AT Corner Community, and basically it's somewhere where you can, a lot of times after we release episodes, we get people who email us and they're like, hey, I totally remembered a story and that would totally fit in. And we're like, hey, you know what? We have a Facebook group. Go ahead and share it in there. It's just a place where you can network with other listeners of the show. You can share stories. You can share education stuff. You can really just network with other members.
Yeah, it's a fun spot.
We try to post. Other people post too. So, and then also podcasts are great, but you can't comment on them. So we do post episode threads so you guys can comment on this episode if you feel like you need to share something. And then as far as our episodes, if you guys are new again, we do every other episode as education or stories.
Yeah, so our next episode will be an education episode, and we will be talking about patellofemoral pain syndrome.
Oh, we are?
Yes, I told you earlier we'll be doing a modality, but I switched it up. I just thought about it. I feel like talking about some knee pain.
Okay, that sounds good. I mean, I've been having some knee pain, so maybe it will be good for me.
I mean, if anyone's worked with runners, this is a big issue.
Yeah, so you guys, we do alternate. So each, I think, even numbered episodes are education. And then our upcoming stories, if you guys want to submit your own stories, we're still taking submissions for favorite gifts that you've received or different ways that you've been thanked as an athletic trainer. We're releasing that later in December. Goals and resolutions we have for the new year. And then also stories from your first time certified. If you have any of these stories, you can go ahead and email us at atcorners@gmail.com. And then also, I alluded to earlier, we also post these in our Instagram stories. So if you keep an eye out for those, you can go ahead and I try to post some questions for you guys to answer so we can kind of get some polls going up there. And then also I always release hey, these are upcoming stories. So you guys can also DM us on Instagram.
And then also, if you listen on Apple Podcasts, please don't forget to share, rate, and review us. We would definitely love to hear some feedback, and you might just get your comments read on the show.
Yeah, awesome. You have anything else to add, Randy?
Nope, that was perfect. Thank you for helping us showcase athletic training behind the tape. Bye.